Welcome into the Russ Joy Show. I'm Russ Joy. You figured that out because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. It's trade deadline day. I honestly was trying to figure out, what's the right tone to have on a morning like today? What's the right tone to have on a morning following an egregious shutout loss at home to the Utah Mammoth? I said to myself, what do we even bother with last night's game? Was there anything that was so worthwhile from last night's game that we bring it up and we have the conversation today? I decided no. Now, I will tell you, from a programming perspective, we're doing two shows today. We're doing the morning show, and then we are going to do a show closer to the deadline. I think the actual deadline goes down at 3 o'clock. Let me just double check that, which means we'll probably go live at 2:30, I think. Probably 2:30. I think last year I did a show from 2 until 3:30. I don't think I have an hour and a half in me later today. But yeah, it's a 3 o'clock deadline. We'll probably go live at 2:30 this afternoon, where we'll dissect whether or not the Flyers did anything at the deadline. Now, we're in an uncomfortable place because as of right now, we're 5 hours from the NHL trade deadline. And the Flyers have done nothing. And I feel like at some point, somebody needs to come to me and explain to me why I'm wrong. I need somebody to come to me at some point and explain why my frustrations around the Philadelphia Flyers for the past decade, but more specifically since I started covering the team in some capacity in 2018, I need to know why I've been wrong to this point. I'm going to show you some numbers. I'm going to show you some stats, and I tweeted a bunch of them out earlier, but I'll go over this with each and every one of you. The reason that I am as insane as I am when it comes to this team, and the reason that I yell and I scream and I get worked up and I get angry, is because this Flyers team remains on a hamster wheel. And it feels like each and every year we're having the same exact conversation, or pretty damn near the same exact conversation that we do each and every year. And if you think to yourself, well, that seems silly, I want to show you something that I just tweeted out. Now, I will admit I messed something up on a tweet earlier in the morning. I kept hitting 2015 instead of 2014, okay? So shame on me. But I want you guys to see it. This is why I'm insane, okay? Here's where the Flyers were on NHL trade deadline day in 2024, 2025, and this year in 2026. And then I want you to see where their point totals were in 2014, 2015, and 2016. We can all take a minute to kind of take this one in. Now, what you'll notice, 2024, at the deadline, they had played, 64 games. They played 64 games. They had 74 points, and they were 2 points up on the number one wild card, right? They were up by 2 points. In 2025, they had played, I hate math. Let's see, 55 and 63 games. They had 62 points. They were 5 points out. And this year, they have played 61 games. They have 67 points, and they're 6 points out. So they're virtually in the same place out of the playoffs as they were a season ago. Look at a decade ago. Look back to a decade ago. 62 games into the season in 2014, they had 70 points. 63 games into the 2015 season, they had 65 points. 61 games into the 2016 season, they had 67 points. A decade apart. Plus 4 points from 2014 to 2024. Minus 3 points from 2015 to 2025. Exactly the same number of points at the deadline in 2016 as in 2026. You know what that tells me? You know that should tell all of you? Nobody's fucking serious about a rebuild in this city. Not a person. Not one. How much closer are the Flyers to being a team that is a playoff contender, a Stanley Cup contender, now versus a decade ago? There's your answer. They're not. They're not. Somebody explain to me why I'm wrong. I get on Press Row Show last night. I have Sanfilippo bitching and moaning in my ear because I said it was a stupid decision to play Rasmus Ristolainen last night, the night before the trade deadline, because there's no value add. He's not going to increase his value by going out and playing last night. If anything, it opened up the potential and the possibility of him getting hurt and blowing up any potential trade. That's not complicated. That's not controversial. That's asset management. I was told before this is why I get angry. Before the game, I am told the rationale, the reason that the Flyers chose to play Rasmus Ristolainen, they're trying to win the game, Russ. They're still trying to make the playoffs, Russ. I say that's pretty fucking stupid because they're not a good team and they're not going to make the playoffs with this roster as currently constructed. 60 minutes later, 60 minutes of hockey action, getting shut out 3-0 at home. The same person who said the reason they're playing Risto is to win the game and to try to make the playoffs, that same guy, after the same goddamn game, says, well, they're probably not going to make the playoffs. No shit! Am I insane? Have I reached the point where like something is happening and I'm just not following? Have we reached the point where like I am genuinely a moron? Has it happened? If it has, please let me know. Nothing changed last night. That Flyers team that you watched lose 3-0 last night is largely the same team they have been since the second half of the year started. This is the team. And if we go back a year ago, under John Tortorella, when the team was 5 points out of a playoff spot and appeared as though they weren't going to make the playoffs, I was yelling about the same thing. Get some high-end talent in this team. Consider trading Aristo, who got hurt. Consider making deals. They eventually traded Scott Lawton. On deadline day last year, they made 3 deals. They traded Scott Lawton. They did a nice thing. They traded away Eric Johnson. And they made another move. What was the other move? Kuzmenko. They traded Kuzmenko. Made an already bad power play worse. So they made 3 deals on deadline day last year. They weren't making the playoffs. 2 years ago, I was angry. And you can see it, the Flyers had 74 points. They were 2 points up on a playoff spot. And I said, this isn't a playoff team. This is a phony playoff run. This run doesn't matter. This is the same year. 2024 is the year that Torts decided to bench Sean Couturier and try to galvanize the team. And it didn't work. And they fell on their face. The same way that last year, the team ended up falling on their face and then they fired Torts. Little too late. So it's 3 straight years where you have been virtually in a relatively same area where all 3 years I have said you are not making the playoffs. Somebody please get off the fence and decide we're going to stupidly add to this team or we are going to actively remove pieces and try to find an elite player in the draft. 3 years in a row. Where was I wrong? Find me where I was wrong. 2 years ago, they traded away Walker. That was a ballsy move. They were in a playoff spot. They traded Walker, who was arguably their best or second best defenseman that year. And it all fell apart. Torts benches Couturier. Tries to galvanize the team. Doesn't work. 3 years in a row. I have called this like I see it. 3 years in a row. I will ultimately be proven right again. Because pending divine intervention, this Flyers team isn't making the playoffs. 3 years in a row, you're in the same relative window in that hockey purgatory zone where I continue to sit back and say, there are no free agents. No one's coming here. And especially this offseason, there is no free agent class. Nobody's coming here in free agency. Flyers didn't want to pony up for Quinn Hughes. Flyers seemingly don't want to pony up for Robert Thomas. Flyers are seemingly, unless something changes here, we're watching all these moves getting made, right? We just saw John Carlson get traded this morning. It was like in the wee hours of the morning. Flyers, what are we doing? We moving anybody? Am I going? We're watching defensemen get passed around. Rasmus Ristolainen's still here. Like, I don't know. I don't know what we're doing. Seriously, what are we doing? It's just crazy. It's lunacy to me. I don't understand what the plan is. And I bring that up. Over on Snow the Goalie. And listen, Ann and I are fine. But we very much do not remotely agree on the direction of this team at all. And I'm spoken down to as if there is an oracle of knowledge sitting alongside me who has been here covering a team that has not only tasted the playoffs, but is like a Stanley Cup pedigree. No, absolutely not. All the fans of this city should want, and I think many of them do, is a team they can believe in. You're in year 3 of a rebuild. Look at the results for the past 3 years. What are we doing? And by the way, okay, 2025, I keep saying 2015 today, it's a mess. 2025, when everything fell apart and they fired Torts, you ended up in a position that you could get Porter Martone. Who's one of the only players people are excited about within this organization? Porter Martone. 2 years before that, Chuck Fletcher was here trying to patchwork stuff, and it fell apart. Thank goodness. And he was relieved of his duties. Thank goodness. Who did you end up getting? Matvei Michkov, because you were high up enough in the draft to get him. And there was some geopolitics in play, and some teams passed on Matvei Michkov. The 2 players that you've gotten in the last 3 drafts happened because you ended up picking high in the draft, and you found talent that you believe is ultimately going to be elite. But what happened in 2024 in the midst of a fake playoff run? You ended up drafting in the middle of the round, and you took Jetlachenko. Who's excited for Jetlachenko? Honestly, who? I said this last night, and I'll say it again, okay? There are people who will come on to Snow the Goalie. There are people. And there are people who write about, cover the team, and they will run cover. They will say, I understand why they're making the moves that they're making. I understand. I'm not saying this about my co-hosts either. If anybody out there right now thinks that Ant doesn't believe what he's saying on the show, I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt, the shit that Ant says on the show, as maddening as it is to me, is what he believes. We turn off that camera. That is what he believes. So it ain't him. I'm not saying about Bundy either, but I am saying that there are other people. When you talk to them, they're like, this team ain't going anywhere. And then they go and they write something and you're like, that's not what you said. Okay, interesting. Very interesting. All right, cool. So where are we at? I think I'm done yelling. Maybe. I don't know. I see a lot of people commenting, which I appreciate. We can go over there. We'll go up to the comments. But again, where am I wrong? Tell me. I hate to quote CM Punk on AEW Collision way back in the day. Tell me when I'm telling lies. When I'm wrong about this team, let me know. But I am no more encouraged by this team right now than I was last year or the year before. The only thing I'm encouraged by is you have Porter Martone in the system now. That's it. That is the addition. I'd say I'm probably less enthused about how Matvei Michkov has been used this year versus where I was a year ago. And even then I wasn't thrilled. Tell me when I'm telling lies. So, okay. Play this one out with me real quick. Okay? And then I'm going to go out to the comments. Names that have been bantied about. Rasmus Ristolainen. Certainly seems as though the Flyers have a very high opinion on Rasmus Ristolainen and what he should be able to fetch them. I think they're insane, right? Like I said yesterday, if you end up in a scenario where you could get a first-round pick alone for Risto, cool. I made the case yesterday, if you could get Mertka back from Buffalo, heads up, great. I would be fine with that. Get a young guy who has high upside, who maybe fits your timeline better. Cool. I'm fine with it. I've been told for the last few days that it's insane to think that the Flyers should only get a first-round pick for Risto. Okay. This is what I've been told, right? From some people. Well, here you go. Hot off the presses. About a half hour ago. Let's see. Am I crazy? Maybe I'm crazy. I've been called it before. Anthony Sanfilippo. You may have heard of him. This morning, here's a tweet. Hearing that so far, the offers for Rasmus Ristolainen just haven't been what the Flyers want. But the question is, will they settle for less? I'm starting to think they would. Huh. When you look at what Buffalo traded to Winnipeg for 2 defensemen, you can get a sense of what they may have been willing to pay for Risto alone. Lots of time left, and it's a game of chicken at the deadline, so maybe the better offers start to materialize as the morning and afternoon progress. But who blinks first, if at all? Okay, so. Then he followed it up with this. The most recent teams that have checked in on Risto have been Carolina, Detroit, and San Jose. The Sharks are interesting if they can make it work, but the cap situation may be difficult. Okay. So, 2 nights ago, sitting at Chickies and Pete's in Glassboro, and I throw out this idea. I wouldn't be opposed to a first-round pick for Risto. We don't need to get cute. Don't need to get cute. Get an asset back for Risto. Thank him for his service. Send him away. Your team gets worse. It increases the likelihood of you getting a better pick in the draft. That's it. Simple. It's really not difficult. For some people, it's hard to understand. But I don't think it's that difficult. Here we are on deadline day. We have watched defensemen get moved from the east to the west, from the west to the east, from the east in the east to the west to the west. Defensemen are moving. A few days ago, the national pundits were saying it's a buyer's market. Yesterday, they were saying it's a seller's market. Cool. Awesome. Great. We have a trade. Dun, 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 dun. Bobby Brink. Bobby Brink. Danny Briere heard what I said. All right. Very interesting. Frank Saravalli just put it out a minute ago. Here it is. Bobby Brink. Bobby Brink. We wish you well. Bobby Brink has been traded to the Minnesota Wild. I'll tell you what, Bobby Brink, good dude, good player for this team. We've been hearing since the beginning of the year that Brink was not a favorite of the organization. David Jiricek is coming back. Oh, well, now we have something interesting going on. All right, Danny. All it took is me yelling on the show. See, this is how they pacify me. Thank you, Danny. Getting the defenseman back. Look at that. Hey, it's a Christmas miracle. Emily Kaplan has the details here. Per sources, let's see. Hold on. Why does it say last edited? What are we? All right, hold on. Here's the most recent one. All right, here you go. Well, Flyers make a deal. All right, so the Flyers have traded Bobby Brink to the Minnesota Wild for David Jiricek. Now, if you remember, was it last year? I feel like it was last year. Jiricek was a name that came up. He was dealt from Columbus to Minnesota. What was the deal? Trade Columbus. Give me a second. If you remember last year, there was a lot of frustration. Last year, Jiricek was traded to the Wild by the Blue Jackets for Hunt and 4 draft picks. It was Damon Hunt and 4 draft picks. And now a year later, it cost Bobby Brink, who admittedly is a bottom 6 forward. Now you have a young defenseman. Now, Jiricek is like an interesting dude insofar as he was highly touted. He was drafted high. He hasn't exactly had the best results. This is now his second trade in a year? Second trade in roughly a year. Played 25 games this season for Minnesota. No points. Last time he was in the lineup for the Wild was January 31st. So make of it what you will. He's 22 years old. He's 6'4". Is he an eventual Risto replacement? We don't know. So this is interesting. See, I go from yelling, and now they make a trade. I like Bobby Brink, though, but they make a trade. I have to imagine Alex Bump is coming up. They make a trade. All right. Danny, good on you. I like the idea of a high upside potential young defenseman. Look how my mood has changed. All it took was one deal. Good job, Danny. Thank you. All right. Brink, bottom six forward. Nice guy. Good dude. Apparently a great handshake to intern Andrew all that time ago. But we do have to note, it wasn't going to work here. They wanted to clear space for a guy like Alex Bump. They wanted to have a roster spot open if and when Porter Martone's season maybe ends a little bit prematurely with Michigan State. And so now you finally get it. All right, so you know what? Things are looking up maybe a little bit. Now, you can't go into this expecting that David Jiricek's going to be some incredible player for the Flyers this year. Again, Columbus had soured on him. Clearly, Minnesota, for whatever reason, decided to sour on him as well. Had they not, you're probably looking at a situation where he's still there. All right, hold on. I have to try to break into something because I told Anthony I was going to put something out last night. And I haven't done it yet. All right, let me see. Oh my gosh, why can't I? Okay. All right, hold on. There's a thing that I promised Anthony I was going to put out last night if and when Brink got traded. And I don't have access to it right now. Let's see if I can find it. Hold on. What the heck did I do? I know this makes for a really bad show. Apologies, everybody. I promise it's kind of worth it. Maybe. Possibly. All right, there we go. Yeah, da-da-da-da-da. All right, we'll come back to it. Anyway, Jiricek. Good pickup for the Flyers. High upside. If he's able to put it together, he's only 22. If he comes in here and doesn't have unrealistic expectations of what he should be as a player for this team, then it's a really good move for the Flyers. If he comes in here and expects to have significant minutes right away, I'm not sure that that's going to happen. All right, here, I'm going to show you guys the picture because I'm putting it out right now. So last night, Anthony and I, after the game, this is how I tell you that despite the fact that Ant and I yell at each other a lot, we are on the same page quite often. We said last night that we were going to go around. Now, we didn't do it for every player who might get dealt today, but we did do something where we said, all right, we're like in the event that Bobby Brink gets moved, we had to do something. So again, apologies to everybody that we're doing this right now on the show, but I don't have much of a choice. It's a timely thing. I'll pull the picture up here in a second. I just have to figure out how the heck to switch this. There we go. All right, Snow the Goalie account. Here we go. So Ant and I walked around last night after the game, and we said, all right, if we're going to do something, if we're going to see Bobby Brink get moved, if a Delorier gets moved, whoever, we also have to be willing and able to, maybe put something out kind of in memoriam to Bobby Brink especially, and probably most notably to intern Andrew. Because as you recall, many of you, if you keep up with the Press Row show, you'll know that intern Andrew, he was a big believer in Bobby Brink. So I'll pull up the tweet here in a second. But you guys let me know in the comments what you think about the Jiricek trade. Do you feel good about it? Are you happy with the return for Bobby Brink? We were talking about this the other night on Snow the Goalie at Chickies and Pete's. And threw out the idea of is it going to be a second round pick? Would you be fine with a second round pick? And I said, well, no, if he was a second, then the last thing you want to do is trade him for an unproven commodity. Second round picks to me don't really mean a lot. Hell, we have plenty of opportunities and plenty of times where we've sat back and we've watched first round picks not amount to anything. So it seems kind of crazy that you'd kind of go out of your way Oh, crap. Hold on. Was there another? There's not another move happening. All right, we're fine. All right, I got it. We're good. I didn't like the idea of trading him just for a pick. I felt like you had to get some kind of a prospect back. And now it turns out that Bobby Brink has been moved. So we wish Bobby Brink well. We hope that he finds a lot of success out in Minnesota. But it has finally happened. All right, I'll pull up the tweet. Bobby Brink to Minnesota for David Jiricek. Done deal. All right, so, sorry. That was like about as awful of a vamp as I've ever done for this show. And this is what happens when we're trying to get this thing done at the last second. All right, here we go. Here's the tweet. Pull it up on the screen. So last night, Ant and I, walking around Xfinity Mobile Arena, said, we have to do this for intern Andrew. And here it is. Ant and I took a picture at the Bobby Brink poster in the arena last night. So there it is of the handshake. We had to do the handshake for intern Andrew. So again, we wish Bobby Brink well, but I feel like there's a good number of people out there who probably are going to be disappointed. Bobby Brink was a popular guy. I mean, I think that it would be, I don't want to undersell who Bobby Brink was as a player to this team. And I am typically one who will call out when I feel like we're overrating a guy. I think Brink was a good dude, and I think that Brink fit a very important role on this team. But it's gone. It's done. And we have to, you know what, I actually forgot to do this. At intern Andrew. There we go. All right, now we're good. So, anyway. I think it's a good return for the Flyers. We'll see if they're able to turn Jiricek into the guy that Columbus thought they were drafting and Minnesota thought they were trading a player and 4 draft picks for a year ago. Crazy question by Nick Abe asks, will they trade Vladar? No, they will not trade Vladar. If they trade Vladar, good God. Like, that would be horrific. Flyers TM asks, does this guarantee Risto is gone? No, but you do wonder. So they have had frustrations with Emil Andre. I think that there's still a chance you could see a guy like Noah Juleson moved. There was the thought that Nick Seeler could be moved, but is hurt. And then you got Risto. So I would assume that Jiricek is going to play up here. And if they really are not thrilled with the play of Emil Andre to this point, he'll be in and they'll send back down Andre, would be my guess. So here you go. Mike Moo, 22, I like that rhymes, asks, bump call-up imminent? I would think so. I'd be if they don't call up bump, I would be really surprised. I think that I wouldn't be surprised. Okay. Re-rack everything. With Brink gone, it opens a hole. They wanted to have a hole open for bump and or Martone. I don't think they're going to trade another roster winger. Deslauriers, I think, will get moved. So, like, technically, you might have another opening with the big club, but, like, Martone isn't going to come into camp here or come to this team until Michigan State season's over. I would expect Alex Bump is going to be an almost immediate call-up. Should be. You need to get a look at him over the next 20 games. They have 21 games left, 10 at home, 11 on the road. Bump should absolutely get a look for 21 games. No questions asked. Unless he comes up here and totally falls on his face and fails after like 6 games. But you really should try to find out what you have with him over the next 21 games. And I would expect that Jiricek will be up here. I do expect that they will move probably either, you would hope Aristo for value, or maybe they move a Noah Juleson. I don't know. Let's see. This is not true. There's no chance this is true. Gritty123, you can't troll me like that. Not funny. Not funny. Says Ersson has been dealt to the Oilers. That's not true. It would be pretty funny though. I mean, If I were the Edmonton Oilers, I would do whatever it takes right now to try to get another goalie in because Tristan Jarry ain't it. McDavid has to feel like, to some extent, like an absolute dolt for re-signing their under market value and then watch them trade Skinner for Jarry and watch it even be worse than Skinner was. So, okay. Let's see. B. Condor says Risto, D'Lo, Juleson, Grundstrom all should be moved. They're not going to move that many guys. Delorier definitely feels like is going to get moved. They signed, what's the guy's name? Garrett Wilson. They brought him up. Tough guy, enforcer, dude who you would think is going to replace Delorier. Delorier was the last guy, I think, off the ice last night after the shutout loss to the Mammoth. Kind of feels like he knows that was his last game. And I'd kind of expect that Delorier in the front office probably had a conversation like, he's not playing every night here. There might be another team out there that values what he brings to the table. If they can move him, move him. Jim G 9930 says Drysdale stinks 25 points -8. He doesn't stink. He's been one of their best defensemen. Now that might be a low bar. Drysdale's had a good year at even strength. It's not a good team, but he's had a good season. If you're going to base Drysdale's season on plus minus, more power to you, I guess. I think it's a mistake, but sure. If you want to base it on his point production, again, I don't think that's it either. Shooby-dooby OG says Vladar for McDavid. Who says no? Probably the Flyers. Yeah, probably the Flyers. Let's see. One shot money success one says Wilson signed a 2-way yesterday. That is true. That's why we kind of think that Delorier played his last game. Evan John Atkins says Jiricek is 22 and on his third team, not a good sign. Well, again, if you remember, Columbus, I feel like, sent Jiricek down to the minors, and that pissed him off. And then he got dealt to Minnesota. And let me actually look at something with Jiricek really quick. I keep saying between Jiricek and Jiricek. Hold on a second. I want to check this. This would give me the answer that I'm looking for, and this will help all of us as we decide how good or bad of a move. Okay, so I was correct. So with Columbus last year, Jiricek played 6 games. He played for their AHL team, the Cleveland Monsters, for 4 games. He got dealt. Goes to Minnesota last year, played 6 games with the Wild, played 27 games in the AHL for the Iowa Wild. This season, he played 25 games with the Minnesota Wild, 24 games with the AHL team, the Iowa Wild. So, listen, maybe this is another situation. It's another scenario where he got frustrated with not getting a shot at the NHL level, thought that he believes that he belonged at the NHL level. Remember, we started this year with Igor Zamula on the team, and Zamula's agent was the one who came out and said that, he felt like his player had been kind of typecasted into being a bottom pair, a third pair defenseman, and that he could be so much more than that and all that lovely stuff. I have no issue with the fact that it's his third team in a calendar year or whatever. I have no issue with that at all. The real question is, will the Flyers do a good job of managing expectations for the player? Or maybe they will ultimately decide that they're willing to give Jiricek what he wants. If he wants legitimate playing time at the NHL level, maybe they will be more open to giving him that time than Columbus was, and certainly than Minnesota was. We don't know. Just based on where this thing is right now, the Flyers, to me, should absolutely figure out what this guy is. And remember, he was drafted incredibly high. He was a guy that I think there were a good number of people who had kind of hoped that, the Flyers might have been in on, right? He was drafted back in 2022. He was drafted number 6 overall by Columbus. So I have a hard time ruling out a guy. I mean, remember, the Flyers ended up taking Cutter Gauthier at number 5. That was a Chuck Fletcher draft. They took Cutter Gauthier at number 5, and then Jiricek got taken the next pick, number 6. So there were definitely people who had thought about, like, do you go after Jiricek, go after a young defenseman who potentially looked as though he could have been a guy who could have been a number one defenseman. Now, I am not willing to tell you that at age 22, given the initial success or lack thereof that he's had between the NHL and AHL with Columbus and Minnesota, that like Jiricek is going to be a number one defenseman. But I would much rather roll the dice on him being, let's say at worst, a second pair defenseman. What's more valuable, a second pair defenseman or a bottom six forward, which is what Bobby Brink was? I'd argue that the second pair defenseman, if he's a really good one, he's got size, is probably more valuable. The Flyers, if nothing else, are good at cultivating, acquiring, drafting bottom six forwards. I'm not worried about the Flyers' ability to fill out the third and fourth line. And if Jiricek somehow does become a guy that can be a top pair guy, certainly not going to say a number one defenseman, but if he can be a top pair defenseman down the line, it's a hell of a deal. So we say kudos to Danny Briere. It's a good move. Let's see. There's a guy over here who's got quite the name. I don't want to pull that up. I know it was on the screen, but I'm not going to pull it up. But the comment was, he instantly panics when he gets the puck on his stick, which leads to turnovers, and he doesn't use his big body. He has zero physicality about him. We'll see if that changes. Let's see. William Wambach says, not going to be doing anything today, just a complete waste of a year. This should be strike two with this team. No trades, horrible draft, and talk. One more fired. Okay. I don't know what else happened. Let's see. Wally says, if Jiricek becomes even a third pair defenseman, it's a win. Brink isn't a difference maker. He was a good player. Brink is a good player. You have Kyrie448 says, Jiricek is horrible, bro. Wally replies, he's 22. We do often talk about the fact that defensemen take longer to develop. Again, we'll see what the Flyers ultimately decide is the right development path for him and whether or not they're able to maximize him. Minnesota hasn't been able to. Columbus hasn't been able to. Okay. All right, I'm going to try to go out to the comments here. We'll probably wrap the show around 11. And a programming reminder, we're going to come back at like 2:30. So you'll have to come back to the channel 4 hours from now. And we'll do something around the deadline where we'll react if the Flyers make any additional moves. They've now traded Bobby Brink, but we want to take a second, take a moment, look at it, try to view it a little bit holistically. We got the yelling out of the way early in this show, right? We might come back to the yelling later, but we don't know. We don't know. But we'll come back at 2:30. We'll react to what's happening around the deadline. And honestly, I just like doing a deadline show right as the final trades are coming in. And then we probably bleed that into like 3:15, 3:30 as those final deals that are kind of pending with league office ultimately get approved. So we will be coming back with the second show today. If you haven't done so already, like the video, share the video, subscribe. I don't know what else you're doing. Like, I mean, I appreciate y'all being here. We got a much bigger audience than, a typical Friday morning. We have to 664 across all platforms. All right. 235 over on the Russ Joy Show YouTube account. Thank you. But seriously, like the video, share the video, subscribe. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Just so you know, in case you're new to the show. We do this every Monday, Wednesday, Friday. We're doing it at 10 a.m. I think we're going to stick with 10 a.m. It's kind of working. So we'll rock and roll with it. We talk about the Flyers. We talk about the other Philly teams. Sometimes we get into other NHL topics, NBA topics, MLB. We kind of touch it all, right? We just try to have fun. I try to bring a little bit of joy to your day. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. We're all human. We try to do what we can around here. Okay. GJG5087 says, thanks, Russ, for sticking up for the fans last night. I like Ant's content, but he's gone too far to represent the heads of the organization. Well, he believes what he says. I think he's wrong, but he believes what he says. Wyland Ernst says, morning, y'all. Would Buffalo take Risto back? Nope. They made the deal for Luke Schenn last night, so I think he's very clearly out of it. He's no longer in anyone else's plans. Let's see. Gritty123 says, 2 more defensemen traded while you were asleep, and Risto at his peak value still remains a Flyer. That is correct. B. Condor says, can't wait for Danny to do nothing. We will see. This, again, was before. I'm looking at the timestamp now. That was before the Brink trade. Let me see if I can find some stuff that's also... Tutty T says, think Brink trade is a sign of a teardown. No, not at all. If they trade Konechny today, that is very much a sign that they will have admitted that not tearing it down 2 years ago is a mistake. Konechny is really the only thing that would tell me it is a full-on teardown scenario. I don't see that. I do wonder now, though, honestly, I do wonder if this trade going down as early as it did, does it open up the possibility of a Tippett trade? I don't think it does. I think that if Tippett's going to get moved, it'll be in the offseason. But this does, it intrigues me that this move went down as early as it did today. Let's see. Gritty asks, I think this is about Jiricek. Asks, how can the Flyers just give Jiricek time in the NHL if they aren't going to give Kolosov NHL time and make him earn it? Kolosov has been a good soldier and has the talent to be an elite number one. Well, to the latter point there, I don't think he has the talent to be an elite number one. I think he could be an NHL goalie. Maybe he's a decent starter. Maybe he's a backup. I don't know. They very clearly have communicated this year, unlike last year, to Kolosov that, you're playing in the AHL. We're relying on you to be a good vet, be a good player, work with Bjornsson. I think Kolosov's going to be the backup next year. Again, this was another point of contention on Snow the goalie yesterday or 2 days ago. If I'm the Flyers, I let Sam Ersson leave. He's a restricted free agent at the end of the year. Either let him leave, or if there is a team out there that for some ungodly known reason decides they want to have his exclusive negotiating rights, all right, then cool. Live your best life if you're the Flyers. Go ahead. You can trade those rights, get a 5th round pick, get whatever. I don't care. Get something back. Cool. I let Sam Ersson leave. I bring up Kolosov next year, right? Then again, it depends. If you think that you're going to make a big swinging tubular meat move this offseason, and all of a sudden you're going to be a contender in the East, which I don't know how the hell you could make that trade, but sure. If you think that you're going to be able to do that ahead of next year, well, then you probably don't roll the dice with Kolosov as your backup. You probably go into next year with Vladar, and you probably sign another veteran backup. I like the Kolosov-Bjarnason tandem in the AHL this year. Kolosov, when he's gotten brought up here, hasn't exactly lit the world on fire either. So I think in the case of Jiricek, you pretty much give him a 21-game run here at the end of the season to see what he looks like. Who does he work well with? Who can you try to build on chemistry with for next year? You need to get a view of how he fits with this team. You know where Kolosov fits with this team. For the most part, I would argue. All right. Wally says, if people can wait on Luchenko, we can take a shot on a 6'4" former top 10 pick. I think that's correct. Let's see. Shooby-Doo says, Flyers front office can schmooze him, give him a chance to have a clean slate like they did for Zegras, put him with the big club, show him how to be a pro defenseman, put him under Sanheim's wing. I think all that's fair. Yeah, I have no issue there. Let's see. There was something else here. Man, got a lot of comments coming in. Okay. E.B. Nilla says, Michkov back to right wing with Brink on? I don't know. I don't know. Tocchet seems really hell-bent on Michkov the left wing. For better or worse, it seems like that's where he's landed. I don't know. Will they go back to Michkov on the right wing? Again, 21 games left in the season. If you're trying to win games, I think you move him to right wing. If you're trying to see if he can consistently play on the left wing, then you keep him there. Let's see. Struble Kyle says, Todd Reardon. Reardon might love Jiricek. We don't know. It's actually a shame. I'll tell you what. You know who I was always a big fan of? Bradshaw. You know who I think really was largely behind the development of Risto and Sanheim and York and even Drysdale? I think a lot of that comes back to Bradshaw. I think he got a raw deal here, but that's just me. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's see. Nick Abe asks, do you think Emil Andre will be gone? No, I don't. I don't think they trade him. 2, I don't think he has a lot of value out there anyway. Will he be at the NHL level the rest of the season? That may be the thing that they're going to look at. Again, if they trade Noah Juleson, if they trade Risto, then I think Andre's still here, and I think Jiricek is here. If they don't make another move coming off of a defenseman, I think there's a non-zero chance they swap Andre for Jiricek to give him a look at the NHL level. Let's see. Cosimo Panetta says, Risto got to go now, even for a second, right side deep with prospects. I disagree here. A second-round pick does not, no. As much as I am team lower the ceiling, lower the floor, I would not trade Risto for a second. Risto for a first, sure. Risto for a high upside prospect, sure. Risto for a second and a guy that maybe was a high pick that you're trying to get something out of. Like, this is not an actual trade, but just for comparison's sake. If you had a deal for like a Shane Wright-esque center who hasn't found that success at the NHL level, and you said like the equivalent center of like a Shane Wright and a second for Risto, I think that would be a move that you consider. I have no issue with change of scenery. I would not move Risto for a second. I just wouldn't. Let's see. Vacant Alleyways says the only players we can apparently develop are defensive players. That there is something to be said for that, yeah. They've at least gotten better. Listen, among all of the criticisms and the critiques, and I was yelling about things at the beginning of the show today, they have done a better job of getting a good number of their defensemen in the past 2 years to play better at 5-on-5. Drysdale, to me, right now, leads the class. Cam York has had like a pretty consistent season. Sanheim was a deserved Olympian who now I think has put himself very much on the radar going forward for Team Canada. Like, he looked like he legitimately belonged there. Flyers TM says, Russ, I need to come back with the same energy if no other moves are made. Listen, if they don't make another move, if Bobby Brink is it, I will be yelling at 2:30 on the trade deadline special later today. Let's see. Nick Abbe says, I'm new to this show. No, you're not. You silly goose. Let's see. Wally says, you have to believe Jiricek is better than Juleson and Andre. Good chance. Let's see. William Wambach says, just starting the show, but completely agree about the 10-year similarity and what is so similar Comcast. Well, okay, don't forget, like, if you missed this earlier in the show, again, I think this is like the most damning thing I could have possibly put out, right? The reason Flyers fans are so insane, and the reason that people like me are so insane when it comes to like being frustrated with the results of the team are this. In case you just joined the show and you missed it earlier, here's your 10-year gap between this Flyers group and a decade ago. 2024, at the deadline, they had 74 points. In 2014, they had 70. In 2025, they had 62 points. In 2015, they had 65. And oddly enough, 2016 versus 2026, 67 points. It's insane. Legitimately crazy. Now I'm starting to doubt my numbers again on 2026 and 2016. How could they have the same? They couldn't have had the same record. I had to have screwed that up. I had to. I don't trust myself anymore. I don't. I kept putting stuff in today that said like 16 instead of 26 and 2015 instead of 2025. And so like I've officially stopped trusting myself in anything that I put out on Twitter today. So I gotta figure that one out. I wonder if I messed that up. I'd say there's like a non-zero chance that I screwed that. If they had the same exact record a decade apart, holy shamoly. Hold on, let me look at something real quick. NHL trade deadline date 2015, 2016. All right, so the trade deadline was February 29th. So we need February 28th of 2016. All right, February 28th. I'm going to do this real quick. Feb. I really hope I didn't mess this up. If I did, I'm going to be very upset with myself. All right. Flyers were 28, 22, and 11. They were. I'm not wrong. They legitimately have the same exact record right now as they did in 2016 at the deadline. That is unfathomable. Holy shit. That is nuts. Wow. Wow. Okay. Ford is here. Ford isn't even a hockey guy. I was getting all kinds of complaints from Ford earlier today. Says Ford isn't a big hockey guy, but is here to support his brother in Christ, the Russ Joy Show. Thank you, Ford. Thank you. Let's see. Wyatt's Hot Takes asks, how does acquiring Jiricek affect the rebuild? Does this influx of talent move up the timeline? I think this is partially sarcastic, but it doesn't change anything. Again, the only way to know for sure that the Flyers would be saying, hey, we're not looking to push in the chips the rest of this season and maybe not even next year, is if like they somehow move like a Konechny. If they move a Risto, I don't think the calculus on the team changes that much. If you remember earlier in the year, I felt like the blue line had actually played pretty well without Risto, and I kind of questioned, like, what do you do when you bring him back? I think he's a good defenseman. I think Risto ultimately, to me, is like a second pair defenseman on a really good team. And if he's on a cup contender, maybe he's a third pair guy. I think he's the second pair defenseman. And he's good. He's not bad. He's good. I don't think he gets you like 6 extra wins a year. I also don't think that he's worthless. So you have to kind of find the balance there. Adding Jiricek, I don't think changes much though. Like I don't think it changes a damn thing. I see a bunch of people talking about Konechny and that's not going to happen. Tippett, I really don't think is going to happen. Gritty admitted he was joking about Kolosov being a good soldier and having an elite number one upside. Thank God. I was so worried. Eric Wisniewski brings up Coots. Says, try to convince Coots to give up the no-trade clause to a contender team. I think if Couturier were going to get moved, which I think is going to be very, very hard to do without retaining a ton of salary, is like that's an off-season move. I cannot fathom a scenario where they're able to move that contract at the deadline. I don't see it. Local Drunk 69 says, I'd prefer Briere not make trades with Billy Guerin. Billy just seems way smarter than Briere, and he typically doesn't lose trades. All right, so counterpoint to this. While I agree that Guerin doesn't typically lose a lot of trades, I will note Brink playing for Minnesota helps Minnesota now. Minnesota really needs to go as close to all in as they can as they work to try to convince Quinn Hughes to stay and sign an extension. Bobby Brink will not be the reason that Quinn Hughes remains in Minnesota, but they do need to add and try to maximize this window. They just gave Kaprizov a massive deal. They traded for Quinn Hughes. They have to add to this team. They don't have to wait on the development of David Jiricek. So if you're the Flyers, it maybe fits your timeline better. You're getting a higher upside player, and you have the patience to make that work and to try to develop that player. Minnesota didn't have to do that. I actually think it's one of those rare opportunities where it does make sense for both teams. Let's see. T-Words 37 says, hit that like for tubular meat in the Kolosov explanation. Thank you. We usually refer to tubular meats when we're talking about hot dogs, but I said that earlier. Mythos 7112 says, maybe already covered, but thoughts on Bobrovsky era ending in Florida. I saw that it was close. Did it actually go through while the show's been going on? Let's see. Kevin Weeks put out an hour ago. Bobrovsky could be in discussions, multiple trade scenarios. There was a thought that he could end up back. I guess he could end up back in. No, not back in Columbus. That'd be weird. You know what would be really interesting? I don't know how you could make this work. If you are the Edmonton Oilers and Sergei Bobrovsky is available, salary-wise, I don't know how you make it work. But if you're Edmonton and Bobrovsky's available, to me, you need to push a lot of chips in to try to make that happen. I don't see a scenario where Edmonton is able to run back a lot of this roster with another shitty goalie situation next year and McDavid decides to re-up. Like, I don't see it. Even if he loves Edmonton, you can't screw this up the way that they have. Bobrovsky has a massive cap hit. That's the problem. Man, though, if Edmonton somehow were able to get Bobrovsky, that would change a lot. There's another report out there that the Flyers are still in talks around Delorier, Ristolainen, and Grundstrom. Grundstrom has had like an interesting season for this team. But again, like I don't know what to make of that. I still think that Juleson is in play. Wasn't mentioned in that report, but that's very interesting. Okay. Tutty says, Bobby Brink wins a cup before the Flyers make the playoffs. How's that for a poll? That could be a good poll. By the way, I think it was Tutty. Tutty, I think you commented on Snow the Goalie the other night, and somebody, not me, somebody accidentally banned you from the comment section of Snow the Goalie for the night. I have reinstated you. I'm pretty sure it was Tutty. So Tutty, if you found yourself unable to comment at some point in the middle of that show, someone who was not me and was not Bundy or intern Andrew or Chris on the ones and twos and not Chris Tarian, I'll give you a guess of who it was. Somebody messed up and accidentally banned you. I think it was you. So just so you know, you're always welcome to comment over on Snow the Goalie. Okay. Let's see. Nick Abe says Cates might request a trade because he's going to miss his bestie. Listen, it's so crazy to think back to where this team was in the beginning of the year. There was that line that was Forster, Cates, and Brink, and it felt like that. I mean, remember, even last year, it felt like that was their best line down the stretch last year. And starting this year, they were the hottest line on the team. They somehow became like a number one line for this team, which was kind of like, spoke to how bad the rest of the roster was. But like, Forster gets hurt. Cates and Brink can't replicate the same kind of success without Forster. And now you see Brink gets moved. Forster's still out. Yeah, I mean, it's a bummer. I think everybody liked Brink. Brink seemed like a good dude. Didn't come off like an asshole, right? Like, Brink seemed like a good guy. So I understand why people would be disappointed that he's gone. I do. Let's see. MJ Bruno asks, would Lachenko be an enticing trade piece to dangle at this point? The answer to that is no. Would he be an interesting piece to kind of float out there? Maybe. But like, he has no real value on his own. If you're trying to make a trade with a team that wants a young center, I mean, but like the thing is that every other team probably to some extent feels the same way or is aware of the faults, namely that he will not shoot. I don't think it moves the needle. Maybe he's a filler in a trade. Let's see. Gooey Herder says, I prefer taking a swing on a recent high draft pick at a position of need to getting something like a second or third round pick for Brink, even if Jiricek doesn't pan out. I totally agree with that. 100%. William Wambach says, Bjarnason is 20. Even the best goalies in the AHL are 24 right now and not up to goalies to take, and not up yet. Goalies take a long time. They do. Poonugs. Yeah, what up, Poonugs? Asks, does this mean they expect to trade another defenseman? I think they do. I would expect that you're going to see a Juleson potentially moved. I think Sealer would have been moved had it not been for the injury, or they would have been a lot more open to it. Risto, if the Flyers have bungled this, and make no mistake, I'm going to be very clear, riding a little bit of a high because you got your check in for Brink. We're saying, hey, good job, Danny. If the Flyers have bungled the situation with Risto, where there was a first-round pick on the table and now there's not, you don't take a second for Risto. That, to me, would be insane. If you can get Risto dealt away for another former high pick instead of a pick at all, like how yesterday I was saying, I'd consider a straight-up of Risto for Mertka. We don't know what Merck is going to end up becoming, but I would rather you take a swing on a guy that's a younger dude who still has a high upside. I would actually rather them find somebody that's played at the NHL level than run the risk on a second round pick. I think that'd be crazy. All right, let's see. Jim G 9930 says, please stop saying if they trade Risto. They got to trade him. Yeah, we'll see if they agree. Evan Alvarez, tongue in cheek. This is a San Filippoism. But Russ, you could get more in the offseason. Yeah, no, you can't. I don't believe that. If they do end up in a scenario where they trade Risto for a second, somebody's going to have to eat a hat. It ain't going to be me. WAJ says 4 weeks ago, people were willing to dump Risto for a bag of pucks. A lot of his shine is recency bias. It's Olympic bias. It's 100% the Olympics. That is 1,000% what this is, which is why I'd argue his value is at an all-time high and you cannot consider, under any circumstances, hanging on to him just for fun. Let's see. See people arguing about York. Gimzak says, Russ, your outfit is giving off teacher vibes today. I didn't have the shirt when I was teaching back in the day. It does kind of feel like teacher vibes, though.
I'm taking everybody to class today about what's going on in the NHL around the NHL trade deadline, all right? That's what we're doing today.
All right, let's see. Feel like we're losing a little bit of steam here, and we are coming back at 2:30, so let's see. MJ Bruno asks, what is the road for getting a true number one center to this team? The draft. Except the problem is that this year, it's not a center draft. It's defensemen and it's wings, according to the people who actively follow the players that are going to be among the top ones in this upcoming draft. It's defenseman and wing heavy. It's not center heavy. So I typically would say NHL draft. This year doesn't look like that year, which is where I maybe come back around to if you do trade Risto and it is for a first-round pick, I'm probably asking for a first-round pick next year instead of this year. Especially now that you brought in Jiricek, former number 6 overall pick, and you want to give him a look this year and probably next year. Not saying that that is your solution on the blue line. They do believe in Bonk. I don't know what to make of it, but I don't know. The short answer is I don't know, and I don't think they know. Robert Thomas is the guy that everybody's been obsessed with. To me, he's not a 1C. He's a really good 2C. I don't think he's a 1C. I don't see a guy, if you remember years ago, I was screaming on Snow the goalie about how the Flyers needed to do whatever they could to try to get Sam Reinhart. Because remember, it was, I don't remember the order of operations of Eichel getting traded to Vegas and Reinhart getting dealt to Florida. But I was very much in on the idea of trade for Eichel. I don't care if he wants an artificial disc replacement, fine, give it to him. And with Reinhart, I was like, that guy strikes me as a dude who could end up becoming a 1C. Russ is right, Evan Alvarez asks, is that a Bayern Munich scarf above you, Russ? It is. Hold on, let me see. Do I have control over the camera here? I think I do. Hold on, let me see if I can zoom out. I've never actually been asked about the scarves behind me. Hold on. How about this one? Can I do this? Boom. All right. There we go. Wow, that's a weird angle. You can see one of the screens over here too, this one. So we have a bunch of Union scarves around the top of the office. But yes, I had a former student who went over to Germany on an exchange program, and he brought me back this Robert Lewandowski scarf. So yeah, it's a Robert Lewandowski scarf. Good eye. Good eye out there. Well done. All right, let's switch back. There we go. I didn't know that I could control the camera like that. That's switched camera lenses. That's fun. Okay. So there you go. Yeah, Bayern Munich scarf. There you go. Good catch. Nick Abe, you stud. Oh, look gorgeous. There is no such thing. Olsen Math says, I guess you have to pull for Bayern Munich so you have one team that wins every year. I don't pull for Bayern. I don't know if I believe in anything anymore, guys. I don't know. What is there to believe in? All right, let's see. I think that's probably it for right now. I do see there's a bunch of stuff in the comments, but I feel like we are getting to the point where we need to take a little break. I have some work stuff that I definitely have to do, and then we're going to come back at 2:30. I hope you'll join me. I do. I mean, there's over 200 of you on YouTube. I think we had over 500 over on Twitter. So do me a favor if you haven't done so already. Like the video, share the video, subscribe. If you're new to the show, seriously, like the video, share the video, subscribe. It's helpful. Ring the bell to get notified when we go live with another episode. We will at 2:30. And hey, listen, if you're out there and you are a Flyers fan, and you have been maybe not thrilled with the direction of things, and you have friends and family members who kind of fit the bill for that as well, share the show to them as well. I'm also going to put this episode in the podcast feed, so if you join late, if you're going to be in the car, you don't want to have YouTube up on your phone or whatever, this podcast will hit the feed. I'm assuming by like 11:45 I'll have everything up and edited. So you can find the show over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. You can also engage in a back and forth with me over on Twitter today. You can see my handle there, @JoyOnBroad. I'll talk to all of you at 2:30 as we prepare to land the plane for the NHL trade deadline. Until 2:30, this has been the Russ Joy Show, and I've been Russ Joy. You knew that already because you're smart. It's also the name of the show. I'll talk to all of you at 2:30 later today as we see, will the Flyers do more than trade Bobby Brink? Will Risto still be here? Will Noah Juleson be here? Will Nick Delorier be here? Will Carl Grundstrom be here? We will find out at some point in the very near future. Talk to all of you at 2:30 here on the Russ Joy Show. Thanks for joining. Talk to you soon. Bye now.